Hi students, welcome to video lecture for Module 11. We have 3 modules related to medical interpreting and translation, and after this one we're only going to have one more left and then your quiz number 3. In this video lecture, I'm going to explain to you briefly the assignment for your group discussion and your site translation and some announcements. For your medical group discussion, I've already played the NPR news brief in class, and we have already had a class discussion on that particular medical translation gone wrong. And it asks you a couple of questions as to what was the word. So pay attention. What was the word that created all this confusion, and it also caused that the patient was treated for the wrong condition. And also one of the questions has to do with asking you what state it took place in. So there's a mention of 2 or 3 different states in the recording, in the NPR recording. So make sure you pay attention to where did this particular lawsuit take place for malpractice. Remember that the colloquial term again, in what state did that take place, and check for your deadlines. The deadlines vary depending on what semester you're taking this class, whether it's the spring or the fall semester. And just really briefly to remind you that you have a site translation coming up. I'm going to be partnering you with one of your classmates. You're going to be taking the time that it takes you to translate. You get to select either the main questionnaire or the one that has to do with the conditions, the health conditions. And you are going to time yourself, and then I will give you the times for what would be considered advanced, medium, and beginners site translation rendition times, just so that you can try to improve your speed and accuracy the next time around that we are going to do it in class. Here's a very interesting link, and it's the whole guidelines for interpreters. I highly recommend you to take a look at that very educational link for that guide. And it's a document that will give you suggestions on how to do effective site translation, recommendations, the do's and don'ts as someone working in the medical translation interpreting field. For example, it talks about on-the-spot translations, written translations. If you were to be asked, if you're working in the medical field, of course, if you were to be asked to conduct something on the spot, it talks about the ethical components of it by not being prepared ahead of time. So it says what you could do on the spot and what they recommend that you prepare ahead of time so that you could render a more precise translation, written translation. And then it gives you, in this other website that I also have the link here, there's great recommendations again from the National Association, National Council on Interpreting in Healthcare. There's great recommendations on site translations. We review this once in class. Please make sure, especially if you want to improve your accuracy, that you put this into practice. Okay. So again, we already talked about the importance of reviewing the material beforehand for comprehension. So for example, when you're doing the site translation, there's words that are basic to most of the applications, regardless of what industry. Those you should know how to translate fairly easy and fairly fast. For example, social security, address, name, all of those should not take you time to think, because you already have reviewed those common, to whom it may concern, all of that sort by the undersigned, and other more common terminology that is associated with medical forms or with any other form. Again, here, more suggestions. We also talked about the importance of recording yourself and timing yourself, so make sure you go over the suggestions. There's a link again for this for the suggestions on how to practice increasing your accuracy for site translations. Again, you have already done this assignment. Just wanted to review with you that when you submit the assignments, make sure you mark the accents in all the Spanish words. You're supposed to do 10 body parts in English and Spanish, 5 immunizations. I gave you feedback to make sure you preview the feedback, or if I wrote it down with the pencil in Canvas, and make sure you see those comments also so that you can know what terminology has accents. Again, for your site translation, you're going to be paired with a classmate, and you will be taking your time. And again, we will do that once more so that you could see how you can improve once you start memorizing some of the terminology. I encourage you to again, check all the deadlines in the module so that you could be up to date on all your assignments. Make sure that you reply twice to your classmates in the discussions and that you also stick to the deadlines. You know, your first reply is due by one date, and then that's to the questions, and then your two replies to your classmates, it's due of days following that deadline. So make sure you keep track of all those deadlines and write your name in all the files. So that concludes the lecture for Module 11. Please make sure that you review everything in Module 11, all the links, all the glossaries, so that you could know where to find them when, in case that you need them for future assignments or for working in your industry. If you are going to work in the medical interpreter, I recommend that you download all those dictionaries and medical glossaries so you can have them readily available. So that concludes video lecture, and have a great week, and I will see you in class.